And welcome back to the Ruby Tuesday. My name's Ruben and this is my review for Vikings Valhalla Season 3. It's the final season, sadly. So the 8 episodes dropped on Netflix today. I've seen all 8. I'm going to be talking about it and kind of reminiscing on Vikings as a whole. If you've been a fan of Vikings, the show that originally aired on the History Channel, then changed network again, then changed network again to end up on Prime Video, Amazon's Prime Video, you'll know kind of the history of the characters. And then we got this, I guess, spin-off following some of my favorite Viking characters of all time. Sam Corlett, who plays Leif Erikson, Leo Sato, who plays Harald Sigurdsson, and Frida Gustavsson. I don't know if I pronounced her surname right, but she plays Freydis Eric's daughter, and she is one of the main 3 protagonists, along with a lot of others that we get to know and love. Season 1 was new and fresh, and everybody was like, "Oh la la, big battles," which I liked. I love seeing the big battles. Season 2 was a weird one because it kind of split up our groups going into their own adventures. The first 5 episodes of season 2 was like this river raft adventure, which I really enjoyed, but it did throw people. And then we had the politics side, so similar to Game of Thrones. And so now, in season 3, our characters are going to have to say goodbye because they knew it was the final season. So while filming, it does have an air of this is completed now. It does have an air of everybody is saying goodbye. We're reaching an end. And unfortunately, that does hamper the storyline somewhat, a little, because there's a lot of episodes where you feel like you're saying goodbye to characters, and it's somewhat bittersweet. It also doesn't have that much battles. Now, not on a larger scale. When we do get them, they're mostly single combat, and it's glorious the way they film it. There's one particular action sequence at the beginning, I think it was the first episode even, that was very shaky cam. I was like, I really hope they don't do this whole way through. Thankfully, that's not the case, and a lot of the singular battles, or one person fighting another, then another, then another, you get to see that action and how it unfolds. So the legendary explorer Leif Henriksen is with his master warrior, who I love the berserker moments that we had from him, Harald Sigurdsson. He's in Constantinople, and there's a whole side story that kind of thrusts our characters into the limelight again, showing us where we are at. It's a very quick setup. I liked it. The thing I'm most pleased with in this series, even if it's not lore correct, like history correct, is the sets and the costumes. They were particularly standout for me this season. I thought they looked fantastic whenever they're fighting, whenever you see swords, the embroidery on, I know it's a weird thing to be talking about, but the craftsmanship between the set design, the set pieces that we have around the series, and the costumes, sword hilts, all of that you kind of don't normally pay attention to. I just thought that was particularly fantastic in this season. Even though it's been building up and we've had a lot of those sets before, I just thought wow. And then with the score, really kind of sets you in the mood for the place, for the tone, wherever you're meant to be, wherever you're traveling. But once again, we have our characters kind of go off on their own adventures. Leif Henriksen is obsessed with the childhood memory of a place that he once saw. He is an adventurer and has been going to many places. Now he has a set route. We have our shield maiden. She has her own worries to deal with, her father back at home, to deal with Christians mostly, and converted Viking Christians that don't like that she's a keeper of the old faith, and she's one of the few, if not like the only clan left that is keeping to that. And so she's desperate to find a home. And then we have Harald Sigurdsson, who has kind of lost his way a little bit. His friends keep reminding him, his warrior friends that we've had in season 1 and 2 and 3, that like, you wanted to go back and become king. Have you forgotten why you've been doing all this battling? Why you've been doing all of this saving money, sending it back so that you could raise an army and claim your throne? We have those 3 stories that span these 8 episodes, but along the way, like I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of goodbyes, a setting up, and that is driven by one of our main characters. King Canute and Emma of Normandy are setting up King Canute's succession, and so there's a big family gathering. This whole story place is placed 7 years into the future. That's where we start in episode 1. Just kind of give you an idea of where these stories and where our characters are, because because if you've been watching, you're a big fan, you're probably wanting to know what's going to happen to your characters. I should say, because it is the third season and it's the last season, don't get comfortable with all the characters that you've come to know and love. There is going to be some deaths, and I was not ready for how quick they were or how blasé some of them were. They were just dead, and I was like, no, not that person. I was surprised at some, and the ending, I think, even though the arc is sort of ended, there are a few unleft wrap-up bows that I would have liked people to have met certain people along the way, and even though they might have been going to the same place, I would have liked a scene to see that happen. Even though this is cancelled, I still feel like there's more story to be told in this, which is disappointing. It was a sort of anti-climax, but I understand that because this was the main story of the history part that they wanted to tell, there wasn't much more to go into. There's always like a character that's the weasel, the snake that we kind of love to hate. Earl Godwin is that character for me. He's always that guy that is like worm tongue on the ear. There's a sort of redemption arc for him in this, but you still never quite trust him. And that for me was a really interesting character, fun to watch because you don't know what he's going to do or what he's up to. One of the biggest pluses about this season is the politics is intriguing. Who is going to try for the particular seat that they're vying for, what kingdom that they want, who is trusting who, and who's going to betray who. There's a lot of that going on in this, and then we get back to our main three characters as to what they're up to. The acting, I think for the most part, is always good. I think some of the younger actors were fine. There's one particular young actor that just felt like he was regurgitating lines, and he was, but it just didn't feel like he was acting. I think a few more titles under his belt, and I think he'd be great. I won't say who it is, because I wouldn't never want to embarrass or single them out, because yeah, that's not my job to. Just to saying, I thought everybody's acting was fantastic except for the couple of moments. The look, the score, the design are fantastic. I'm a bit disappointed as to the amount of goodbyes we had, even though this was the last season. And I think I would have liked a couple of bigger battles, but when we had action, it was well produced. A lot of heart, sore goodbye moments, and by the end, I was sad to see these characters go. Is this my favorite season? No, I don't think it is. I more look at this series as a bit part. You have to kind of watch them together to understand that it is one story. Just you're watching those different chapters. So even though we class it season 1, 2, and 3, this is more like, okay, when I start watching episode 1, I'm going to keep watching until I get to the last episode of season 3, because really they are one story, and I don't think you can really judge it in separate seasons. I don't know if that makes sense, but I thought everybody's characters in this was really interesting, fleshed out enough for us to care, mostly for the characters that we needed to. Betrayal that happened, that we are not surprised when it does happen, but you're just hoping that some characters would, learn how to be better. This is embellished history, so obviously we didn't know all that drama that goes on, but we know some moments. And of course, if you're coming in this as a history buff, you're probably not going to like it, because a lot of the clothing and the styles, all of that has been embellished or changed, the time and the characters and the people, all of that. This is taking some of history and changing it to make it a drama llama, which this is. I'll be sad to see it going, and I'm looking forward to the space that is now being left, because Vikings is finished. There's a huge hole for Viking series now to kind of jump in, and I want to see who's going to fill that gap. Let me know what is your favorite season, if you see it as a whole as well, and who is your favorite character. I'm going to give this season 3.5 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
And you got one.
But if I was to judge it as a whole, I'd probably give it a 4.
And you got one.
Because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think this is definitely worth a watch. Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.